Hey there, I'm Michael Morrison. I am a small business coach who helps small business owners build a business that can run without them. If you'd like to know more about that, go to our website, businessownershipsimplified.com. Hey, I'm here to help people start a podcast. I know that we started ours about 9 months ago, and in the last few months, I've been asked almost weekly by someone that listens to our show, or maybe a client that we have, or a community partner. How did you get started? So I just want to help people. My disclaimer right now is we are not number one on Apple. We didn't have the intention to be. We're not monetized. I just want to help people get started. I know for us, that was probably a 3 to 6 month just research, watching videos, and there's just so much noise and distractions out there. I just want to help people get started. And then as you get started, after you get started, you can tweak, you can learn, you can do this and do that. But just getting started is the hardest part, I found. So first of all, I want to say, I'm going to kind of give you some steps of what I discovered when we started our podcast. The number one thing was, I didn't want to just be another podcast. And I think that's what most people's hang up is I don't know what to talk about. Or maybe I want to talk about this, but there's 5 billion other shows out there that talk about that as well. Well, it doesn't matter. This is your voice. That would be like fast food restaurants. Let's say if McDonald's was around and maybe Wendy's doesn't ever get started, the burger place, maybe they don't start because, well, McDonald's already has burgers, so let's not compete. Just because there's one Chick-fil-A doesn't mean there can't be more chicken fast food restaurants. Just because there's one burger place like McDonald's, there can't be any other burger places. So think about that first. Podcast, it's an array of different personalities. And just because someone talks about the same topic, maybe they don't have the same experience as you do. So first of all, get over that. That was kind of my first thing was. And then the second thing was I had to discover my why. Like, what am I trying to accomplish here? For me, it was not to monetize. In fact, to this day of this recording, I do not and will not monetize our podcast. I want it to be impactful for small business owners. It's my way of giving back for those that don't have the resources to invest in business coaching, mentorship, or things like that. Discover your why. Discover your why. Like, what are you setting out to do with your podcast? With podcast, it's similar to email list. Podcast is a platform that once someone subscribes to your show, they intentionally listen to your message. If they don't like it, they unsubscribe. Those are a couple of reasons why we got into podcasting. The second thing is determine your niche, or niche if you prefer to say that. I'm a niche type person. Discover your niche. My biggest holdup was, first of all, getting over like nobody wants to hear what I have to say, or everybody's already heard it. Everybody already knows what I know. I had to get over that first. The second thing was my niche. Because once I discovered, okay, we're going to do a podcast for these reasons, to be impactful and also control the content, get in front of our prospects, not have to worry about algorithms. Then we discovered our niche. There's a plethora of business coaches out there with podcasts. So I didn't want to do just another business coach podcast. I wanted to find a niche. What we did was we talked to our customers. We also thought about when our customers come to us, why do they come to us? And this is basic marketing, FYI. If you haven't done this in your business, you should do it anyways, but it really helps with the podcast. When our clients came to us, what were the problems they had? Where was their business at? And where did they want to go? And maybe we can find something in there. Maybe we can find a strategic moment that more people want to hear about. And what we discovered is most, not all, most of the businesses that call us, their business is stuck. They're working 10, 12, 14, 18 hours a day. They're stuck making the same revenue that they made last year and the year before. But before that, they were exploding. And then they just plateaued. We also discovered that most of them have read all the books. They're listening to YouTubes. Nothing's changing. They're still stuck. They've got a dysfunctional, disorganized business. They're going through employees left and right. They can't find good employees. They come to us. Once we get their business on solid ground, we discover clarity. We make a plan. What we found was in most of their plans was they wanted to hit the $1 million mark. And for those out there, less than 5% of small businesses ever hit the $1 million, FYI. And when I started looking at the resources and the friends and connections that I have, I'm like, there are tons of people that started like that and got stuck. What did they do to get unstuck and get to the million, 5 million, 10, 20, 50, 100, 500 million mark? What did they do? And what are they still doing? And what I discovered was most of the time it was a pivot. So we created small business pivots as the podcast, which leads me to another tip, your name, the podcast name. One of the things that when I researched that I found that came highly, like I heard this over and over and over, create a name with clarity. So that's my next tip, is creating your name with clarity. And then the next step on the name was research if there are other podcasts with that name, because some people have them copyrighted, trademarked, things like that. The next thing that I found very beneficial, and I didn't really see it mentioned over and over, was go see if that domain name is available. Because if it is, that's just kind of another assurance that there's probably not another name out there with that podcast name, because a lot of podcasts will have their domain as well. We don't have anything on our domain. We just have it registered in case we ever do. But also, if people are doing what we did and they're researching, they can see that clearly there's a Small Business Pivots podcast. The next thing that I would suggest is determine on if you're going to do a solo podcast. Are you going to be the only host? Are you going to have one guest, two guests? Is there going to be a co-host? Kind of what is that layout? One thing that I did find that the most successful podcast is the consistency. So if you're going to be solo, it's okay to have a guest from time to time, but don't be solo one time, 10 guests the next time, 2 guests the next time. That's just my personal opinion. And from the research that I found is kind of find a consistent format that you want to follow. Another step that I discovered was you want to determine kind of up front, like how many episodes are you going to do? Are you going to do it monthly, quarterly? Are you going to do seasons? It's kind of like Survivor or any other TV show. You know, they have their season, and they have season 1, episode 1, 2, 3, and then season 2, episode 1. That to me, what I researched, it doesn't matter. It's just your preference of how many times you want to do it and how many times you want to upload. Now, I will say, when we first started, our very first probably 5 to 10 episodes, probably each episode between scheduling the guest, kind of getting a script in our head, kind of getting show notes prepared, getting photographs, getting all these things that you got to get, and then editing, uploading, all that stuff. I would say we probably spent 20 to 30 hours every episode. It doesn't take that long now. It only takes a few hours. But at first it took a lot because we were learning and we were doing things the hard way. And AI was not available like it is now. We were literally crafting every show note, description, social media post, all that. The platform that we use now, and I'll get to that in a minute, the platform that we use now, they have AI, it does all that for us. Now, we don't use it word for word. We go in there and we tailor it towards our stuff, but that saves us a lot of time. Once you start the episodes, you can always change it, but I wouldn't do 1 month, we're doing it weekly, next month we're doing just once a month, the inconsistency. But when we started, I wanted to do 1 a month. And then we got so many guests wanting to be on the show because they found the name of it and they found our description and they were like, wow, I want to be on that show. So then we started bi-weekly. Well, then we kept getting more guests and then we ended up doing weekly. And at any given time, until I tell people we're not taking on any more guests, we literally, my marketing director, Summer, can vouch for this. We literally have daily people reaching out to be on our show. That's the beautiful thing about having a crystal clear name with a description, niche, everything. They understand it and they want to be on there. Not once have we had someone come on there and say, I want to promote my book or whatever. No, it's very intentional. It says what the show's about, and they want to help small business owners as well. So that is the next thing that I would discover. Like I said, we did shift into once a month, bi-weekly, into weekly. That's fine. We haven't seen any numbers drop. We see them still going up, trending up. But if, like I said, if you're to be inconsistent, like, oh, wow, that's too much, so I'm going to do one next week. And then next week comes and you're like, I don't have time this week. Determine how many times you want to do an episode and then stick to it. And then if you do change it and still be consistent with the change. Okay, so once you kind of have the basics down, the foundations, just like you should in every business, find a platform. Now, this is the part that took a lot of time. Not going to lie. We spent hundreds of hours on all this stuff that I'm sharing with you, and I'm boiling it down into less than probably 30 minutes here. Determine the platform. This is where it got really tricky, because if you watch YouTubes and blogs or read blogs, articles, you will get led in so many different directions. For me, I like simplicity just to get started, because I just wanted to get started. There are so many out there that can record and do this and do that. And you're like, but can I edit after that? Or is that just the record, or is this that, or whatever? I will tell you what we ended up doing, because there are a lot of roads you can take. And if you want a professional podcast, here's my suggestion. Hire a podcast company. I wasn't sold on podcast when we started it. So I wanted to kind of get my feet wet, see what was available, and see if it even got legs, got some traction, before I went out and spent a lot of money with a podcasting company. So the platform that we use is Buzzsprout. And here's why we use it. Buzzsprout is nothing more than a place to store your podcast. Once you've recorded it, edited it, and created the show notes and stuff, it's just somewhere to store the podcast and then upload to all the podcast platforms. There's other channels, other platforms that you can use, and not all of them automatically upload. Now, there is some setup to Buzzsprout. You got to get registered with Apple and Spotify and all these different platforms. But once you're registered, every time you upload your episode to Buzzsprout, it automatically sends those out to RSS feeds, everything. And you're done. Some of the other platforms don't do that. So understand, here's the 3 steps. You're going to record, you're going to edit, and you're going to upload, and you're done. That's kind of the basic steps. That's all. And that is one thing that I could not find, just those 3 simple steps, because everything does something different. And everything does something different. And then it doesn't do this, but it does that. That's why we love Buzzsprout. For recording, we use Zoom. There's Riverwind. There's tons of other beautiful platforms out there. Now, I will say, audio is key. Here's the softwares that we use. For recording, we use Zoom. First of all, almost every business person has Zoom. That's the simplicity that we found. When we looked into some of those other softwares, when we would reach out to guests, they were like, I don't want to download another. Can't we just do this on Zoom or whatever? Fine, we'll do it on Zoom and we'll make it work. Second thing, and I know some big time, I'm not going to say that, big companies that use Zoom. So don't let anybody fool you that it doesn't work. It's not good enough. There are big companies that use Zoom for that reason, because everybody uses Zoom and it's just easier. Second thing is, then you go to edit. You take the Zoom files, the audio and the video. We have our podcast on YouTube as a video. This is currently Spotify. We're moving into the video on other channels. But when we first started, we put the podcast on YouTube under the podcast selection on your YouTube channel. And we do all the audio. We upload to Buzzsprout, and it's audio only. And then it sends it to the Apple, Spotify's, and Google's and all that other stuff. So record on Zoom, get an editing software for movies. Any movie thing will work. And then you'll save 2 files from that. One is an audio. The WAV file is what Buzzsprout, I believe, prefers. WAV file for the audio. And then obviously the MP, what was it, 4 for video for YouTube. The next thing is equipment. You can buy a lot of equipment. You can get a soundboard. You can do this. You can do that. A lot of it is unnecessary to start with. Now, mind you, there's probably going to be some podcast professionals, but you should do this and you should do that and call me and call this. I'm talking about for the businesses that are bootstrapped. They're considering podcast. There's no reason to go out there and spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars when you don't even know if one person's going to care about your podcast. This is for those that are bootstrapping their business and they want to get into podcasts and just kind of play around in the space and then go out and explore and hire those people, because now you have some experience to help you make better decisions. When I first started, not coming into it unknown, I could have wasted tens of thousands of dollars before I realized, hey, I don't even like the name of this show. And here I've got all this stuff created for me. We got to start over. That's the purpose of this video, is to help you get started. Equipment. We use this little Samsung. Pat Flynn, there's quite a few popular people on YouTube that suggested this. I think even Buzzsprout suggested it. I think we paid maybe $50 to $100 at the time. It's probably cheaper now. We got this arm that it sits on that's attached to our desk. We have this little thing right here where the microphone, it's kind of a vibration prevention thing. So like if I hit the table or whatever, you don't really hear that bump or thud. We also have this little black cover here, the little foam that takes care of the like if you have ever talked into a regular microphone, it has that sound. It eliminates all that. And then we got the little Logitech high definition C920 is what we got, and I think at the time it was around $100. It's probably $70 now, because that was 9 months to a year ago. A lot of things were cheaper. And then of course you have your ring light. The next thing, that's your equipment. That's all we do. We don't have a soundboard. We don't have all that stuff. We do all that in the editing process. It works for us for now. Behind you, if you're going to do the video version, don't use like a screen, something, whatever comes on Zoom or whatever, because you can see when your head moves and it's real annoying. That's one thing that we discovered as well. People don't like to be annoyed. If there's a lot of crackling in the sound and noise, background noise and all, which this microphone helps with that, somebody could slam that door and you wouldn't hear it because it's directional. It's only hearing voice that's right within this area. People get annoyed. If that was going on the entire time, eventually I'm not going to listen to that for 30 minutes. If I'm watching the video on YouTube or Spotify, wherever the video is posted, and you're using one of those screens that your software comes with and your head moves and you can always see behind it, that's fine for a Zoom call. But when somebody's trying to pay attention and learn something, I found that they don't like annoyances. They don't like distractions. So get you a professional looking background. I know for us, this has been complimented from a lot of people. We've had some big guests on our show so far. I'd say one of our larger ones was Kara Golden. She is the founder, former chairman, CEO of Hint Water, which is the flavored unsweetened water. You see it on NFL game day every single week. Large, probably $1 billion company now. Started from zero. She's been on our show, and Ron Douglas from Discovery Channel. He had a big show. And so we've had a lot of high profile people on here. And even those people were like, oh, I love your background. It says your company name up there. Sometimes we'll run the TV. You don't have to have anything elaborate like this, but we'll sometimes have the TV going kind of with maybe our homepage of the website, or maybe a promotional message, little greenery over here. This little thing down here is the book that I wrote. So if somebody's zooming in, they can see that. And then of course, we got some business books. And, so it's just a, professional. The only thing I do not like is this door behind me. So I'm always having to do that. That's the setting. And then of course we have sound boards up here to echoing. Was really bad in this room, and it was really bad on this show. So make sure that the room itself is good and has some kind of sound barrier, soundproofing. So that's pretty much it just to get started. It was highly recommended, and I'm glad I did catch this. I don't see it very often, but before you kind of promote your show, have at least 3 to 5 episodes already uploaded, and I'm glad I did, because one of my shows, I think I deleted it off there, was so bad that people didn't even listen to a few minutes of it. If that would have been the only show on there, they would have gone, oh, this sucks. I'm going to come back and listen to this. But because I think we had 5 when I made my big launch of it, they had a chance to go listen to another one and go, okay, maybe that was just a bad episode. So that's another big thing that I learned that I'm glad I did, that I want to share with you. Now, the next and most biggest, I cannot tell you, nothing will happen until you take action. I would say after we figured out all this stuff, the hardest thing was fear. Like, I don't know what questions do I ask? Don't go on the internet and find what are the most often questions asked on podcasts. No, be your authentic, genuine self. To this day, we do not have a script. Every podcast that we do is impromptu because I'm very experienced and have a lot of history in owning businesses and working with businesses. I could talk business, small business, shop all day long. I just listen to keywords that our guests are saying and I pick up. So you might practice on the interview process if you're going to have a guest, but don't go find what are the most asked questions. What are good questions to ask on a podcast? I have been told by people like Kara Golden and others that this was a wonderful experience. We talked about things that I don't normally talk about because everybody asks the same questions and they get tired of that. Not only that, but if I go listen to your podcast and I hear the questions you ask, and then I go listen to another podcast and hear those questions and the same questions and the same questions, obviously I'm not going to come back and listen to more because all you're doing is repeating what you see on the internet or other podcasts or trying to be somebody that you're not. So come up with your own crafty schedule. Now, we do have kind of a format, a flow that we follow. If you've listened to our podcast, Small Business Pivots, you will hear there is kind of a flow. We try to talk about their journey, but if I know up front that there really wasn't anything significant in their childhood, I fast forward. But I do kind of have the journey and then some pivots and how they started. And if they have a business that actually can benefit small business owners, we'll talk about that and how, like, for instance, if it's marketing, we'll talk about how the steps, how that can help small business owners, things that they've learned, that marketing, some tips and resources and things. So just listen to it and you'll see that there's a flow. Intro, outro, mid-show bumper. That's all we do. When I first started, I paid somebody to do kind of a big intro and an outro with music and sound effects and all that. And I got some professional podcasters' opinion and they're like, it sounds more like a circus radio. I kind of lost interest because I'm like, well, it's kind of spammy sounding. Now we just introduce our guests, put some music. It might be flavorful to you, but guess what? If it's not, you may not be our target audience. Our numbers are constantly going like this. Again, we just started 9 months ago. That's something else. Do not even search what's a good number for a podcast. You're going to find it all over the board. The good number for podcasts, and you'll hear this in marketing and social media and everything else, you'll know if you have a good number of uploads and listeners if you're making an impact. And if you're getting those people you want to impact listening to your show, that's all you should care about. I know it's hard to not care about vanity numbers and all that, but I promise you, it's all about, are you getting the people you want to listen to this show? I will say, you will spend money, couple $300 for equipment to get started, and then you have your monthly fees. I think Buzzsprout is around $30 a month now. They have a cheaper version, but we use all of their tool. You'll spend a lot of time up front, but I have saved you hundreds of hours just with the basics of how to get started. And that was my last tip. Was the first thing is schedule that first show. That's how you get started. Say, next Friday by 12 o'clock, I will have a show recorded. And that's how you get started. And then once you do that, I always like, if you're hesitant to have a guest on there and you just want to play around with it, have a solo show. Just kind of telling people who you are. I know that that's still our most listened to episode, is the very first one. because I talk about myself, my upbringing, my journey. So once people start listening, they're like, hey, I want to know a little bit more maybe about this host. And so they can go back and listen to my life journey and things. So that is a fire hose of information on how to start a podcast. The very basics. Again, we're not here to monetize. We're just here to help you get started so that if you do want to monetize, you can down the road. The first thing you got to do is take action. Our very first podcast episode probably took 30 hours. And now, literally, I bet we spend three hours total. That's getting the guests, getting there, but we have a process for that, asking for it before the show. We've learned all those things. You'll have to find your own systems, but this will at least get you started in the space. Then you can go out and invest in the big stuff. Wish you luck. Reach out to me, Michael at michaeldmorrison.com, or go to our website in the upper right-hand corner, businessownershipsimplified.com. Schedule a chat with me if you'd like to talk even more shop on podcast or have even more questions. I hope this has been very helpful. That's what I'm here for.